Listen, this is what she said. Nobody told me that the road would be. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. Oh, why don't y'all sing it?
Hi, I'm standing outside Bishop James Episcopal Headquarters, the Episcopal Headquarters for the 7th Episcopal District. Bishop James works inside of this building. In a few moments, we're going to show you what most people don't see, a day in the life of a bishop and the work of a bishop as he arrives for work each day, as he goes to his office and prepares for the daily business of the church, the daily duties of the church. Most people don't have an opportunity to see that image of the bishop. You will have an opportunity to see it today as we take you inside the bishop's office to show you how he begins his day's work and the tasks that must be done.
Nobody promised me that the road was going to be easy. Oh, but I don't believe he brought me this far. Can I get a witness here tonight? Yes, sir. I don't know about you tonight, but I've been running for Jesus a long time. And there's something about walking with him, hallelujah. Every day gets sweeter than the day before. And for some reason, I don't mind the pitfalls. Because every time I get to one, he's right there.
Welcome to Bishop Frederick Calhoun James, a visionary leader. This documentary is an actual documentary of the life of Bishop Frederick Calhoun James. It is capturing the essence of Bishop James' work. Here is the presiding prelate of the 7th Episcopal District of the AME Church in South Carolina. Bishop Frederick Calhoun James was born in Prosperity, South Carolina, in a section called Pender Ridge. He is the son of Mr. Edward and Miss Rosalie James. They were strong members of the Shiloh AME Church. And he graduated from Howard Junior High School in Prosperity and then from Drayton Street School in Newberry. After attending Bettis Junior College in Trenton, South Carolina, he entered Allen University and became an honor student and campus leader in 1943. We will go to the sites of Bishop James' past educational accomplishments. We'll also capture some of the interviews which have taken place that have shown his life's work and his commitment to the church and to the people of South Carolina. So stay with us in this television documentary on the life of Bishop Frederick Calhoun James. This is where Bishop James attended high school from 1937 until 1939. It was in this building, directly behind me, that Bishop James developed a love for education and scholarship that would follow him throughout his life, throughout the United States and also around the world. In this building here in Newberry, South Carolina, began the legacy of education of one of South Carolina's greatest religious leaders. Drayton Street School here in Newberry, South Carolina. Bishop James was here. This is where it all began for his education and his development in African Methodism. We're now in Prosperity, South Carolina. This is the home of Bishop Frederick Calhoun James. Bishop James was born in Prosperity in 1922. Bishop James received his early training here, his early church training, and he also grew up in this community here in South Carolina. And we'll be going to Shiloh AME Church a little later so that we can see the first church that Bishop James attended. But Prosperity is a lovely community. It is a community that is based on some of the basic principles of America. Clean American growth farmland, good hardworking Americans who lived in this community, and that was a part of the nurturing that Bishop Frederick Calhoun James underwent as he developed his background and his youth. Shiloh AME Church is a pillar in the Prosperity community, now pastored by Reverend J.R. Bird. And it still serves many of the young people of this community, much in the way that it served the young people in this community when Bishop James attended this church. If you were to look around in this community, you would see that it reflects the kind of wholesome background that the current bishop of the 7th Episcopal District engenders, and the kind of leadership that he inspires in other ministers throughout the state of South Carolina. But Bishop James did not forget his community. He did not forget his commitment to public service. Part of that commitment to the community came in the form of his appointment here as the pastor of Chappell Memorial AME Church. When Bishop James was appointed pastor here in 1950, he assisted this congregation in developing one of the finest physical structures of any church here in South Carolina. Today, Chappell Memorial is pastored by the Reverend Willie James Nelson, and he continues to serve the community on the legacy that was developed by Bishop Frederick Calhoun James. The following year, he entered the Howard University Graduate School of Religion in Washington, D.C., one of the finest divinity schools for Black Americans in America. He also served as the assistant pastor of the Metropolitan AME Church. At Howard, Bishop James quickly became an honors student. He won the top award for pure scholarship, and in 1947, he won the Best Preacher Award at the fine institution. He was elected president of the Howard University's School of Religion student body and graduated in 1947 with honors. He entered the Union Theological Seminary in New York City to pursue further study toward the doctorate degree. Leaving the fine institution of Howard University, Bishop James did not forget the model of scholarship that was developed there. He returned to South Carolina and continued to pursue outstanding scholarship for his parishioners. And that desire for education and scholarship followed him until he became the presiding prelate of the 7th Episcopal District and also the chairman of the Board of Trustees for Allen University. And in 1984, he proclaimed that Allen University would rise again and began the Renaissance, which is currently underway. Bishop James has been able to revitalize Allen University through the tremendous support that he's given the institution by virtue of his stature as chairman of the Board of Trustees and the presiding prelate of the 7th Episcopal District. That support will be seen as you follow me with video slides of the university campus, as you can actually see the buildings that have been renovated and the current change which is taking place as Bishop James continues to lead Allen University in its renaissance in South Carolina. Allen University will rise again. That was the prophetic quote from Bishop Frederick Calhoun James in July of 1984. Realizing the urgency of saving the oldest black college in South Carolina, Bishop James saw that Allen University was a direct link between the African legacy of the people who were forced to come to America as slaves. And as those first students at Allen University were the sons and daughters of African slaves who'd been torn from their ways and thrust into a new world, Bishop James realized that this great legacy of black Americans could not die. And thus one of the greatest college recovery efforts in black college history began. And it only takes for one to think back to 1835 when a young minister by the name of Daniel Alexander Payne began teaching black men to read and write. And when he was considered a criminal by the courts and the laws that deemed that it was against the law to teach these people to read and write. And so that when 1870, it was proclaimed by the African Methodist Episcopal Church that a university would be created. It began as the 22-building structure that now stands on the corner of Hardin and Hampton Streets in Columbia. And Bishop James remembered the focus that Bishop William Fisher Dickerson, who was elected bishop in 1880 at the General Conference in St. Louis. The buildings on the Allen University campus represent that struggle. The buildings on the Allen University campus represent the vision that Bishop Daniel Alexander Payne had. It represents the vision that Bishop William Frederick Dickerson had, and it represents the vision that Bishop Frederick Calhoun James has today. It may be fitting that the building, Chappell Administrative, was built in 1922, the same year that Bishop James was born, because that building is considered to be one of the finest black architectural achievements of any building, and was built by the Dean of Black Architects. Today, that building serves as the administrative hub of Allen University. Not only that building, but the Coppin Administrative Building, Coppin Hall, which is a dormitory. This historical building was considered to be one of the finest black architectural workings in South Carolina and perhaps in the nation. Bishop James began a renovation program, 1984 to 1988, including the installation of new plumbing and bathrooms at a cost of more than $150,000. Why? Because he cared. Moving on to the J.S. Flipper Library. Now, the J.S. Flipper Library was completely burnt to the ground on July the 25th of 1984. But as Bishop Daniel Payne stood in the fire of the buildings at Wilberforce University and said that these buildings should rise again, Bishop James made the same proclamation for Flipper Library. And as the Super Seventh rallied behind his efforts, that historical building was completely renovated in 1985 at a cost of more than $350,000. If we move on to Reed Hall, one of the 4 buildings on the Allen University roster of historical sites and places, under the leadership of Bishop Frederick Calhoun James, the building has been completely renovated, including the installation of a brand new heating and air conditioning system at a cost of nearly $200,000. The Gibbs Science Building, completed in 1968, named for Bishop Cary Gibbs, was the last complete construction on the Allen University campus. Some people might have said that that was enough, that there was no need for further construction. But Bishop James did not believe that. He did not have that vision. His vision was that Allen University would continue to grow and continue to prosper. And under his administration, as chairman of the board, the first new construction on the Allen University campus in 20 years was started and completed. And that was the Student Center at Allen University, which was completed this past year. As we look around the Allen University campus today, as we look at Higgins Hall, the college dormitory for men that was constructed in 1966, this facility has been consistently renovated and upgraded internally, 1984 through 1988. Allen University has grown and prospered under the administration of Bishop Frederick Calhoun James as the presiding prelate. And he will continue to develop Allen University as it has achieved accreditation candidacy status and is now on the brink of accreditation for the first time in its 119-year history under the administration of Bishop Frederick Calhoun James. Let's not let this progressive movement in. As Bishop James will speak to you now, he and Mrs. James together, you will be able to see and hear the magnificent bulwark of support that has been behind the Renaissance at Allen University. Ms. James of Marion, South Carolina, always an honor student, a graduate of Marion High School, Allen University, and Columbia University, a teacher by profession, and an expert on WMS administration and organization. She has been a jewel.
My husband is a committed man. He loves his church and state. Throughout our service around the world, he has never faltered in his love, service, and commitment. He has always placed the needs of the people before his.
I'm standing here beside Dr. Collie Coleman, the esteemed president of Allen University, and Dr. Coleman is really on the cutting edge as Allen begins to go into one of the greatest phases of its development. And Dr. Coleman, I'd just like to ask you one question. What would you say is the premier, fundamental reason that substantiates Allen University's achievement and success at this current point?
Allen University, the legacy of Richard Allen, is epitomized by the leadership of Bishop F.C. James, builder, Christian, person for integrity for Allen University, for South Carolina. Bishop James represents that dimension.
We now honor and salute the man who organized the team that made Allen University rise from an uncertain future to a clear path of achievement.
I am F.C. James, presiding bishop of the AME Church in South Carolina. Our church has an overriding commitment to the development of Allen University, the building of character and the rebuilding of opportunities, as well as communities. Personally, I think that I was called to be a worker, a servant, an advocate, and an optimist. And the AME Church is the home for me. We are alive in South Carolina. The Super Seventh is on the move, evangelizing, growing, changing, creating, innovating, and bringing restoration to institutions and relationships. It's exciting. I'm thankful to God for the privilege to serve, and as we embark upon the full accreditation of Allen University and the rebuilding of our community, the task becomes even more exciting. I further look forward to completing this work within the next 4 years. This television documentary reflects the momentum and the success of the past, but we must also forecast the urgency of a mandate for the future. I look forward to the full accreditation of Allen University as we pursue goals which are beyond the standards of accreditation. We also look forward to the building of a community shopping center for the Waverly community, the home of Allen University. We solicit the prayers and the support of everyone as we seek to do the will of God in the work that is before us, the work which was begun in 1984. I really believe that with God, all good things are possible, and that we can move forward with faith.